Hi friends, this evening I'm doing a reading for GURPS, and this is a alignment mirror spread. And we buckle up because this reading is about to get heavy. This reading started off on kind of a weird note. I shuffled the deck and pulled the cards, and it just felt off. And so I reshuffled and pulled the cards again, and then I pulled them a third time, and finally I decided to reshuffle and cleanse my deck with some meditation and reset the deck and pulled the cards, and 3 of the cards were repeats from the first 3 times I had pulled, and the last card was not only a duplicate, it was also in the exact same position as the last time that I had pulled the cards. So these cards are definitely meant for this reading. They are meant to have shown up. And normally when I'm doing readings, I try to look for themes and reoccurring patterns within the reading. Sometimes it's a little harder. I might have to turn over all of the cards and then examine them and do a little bit of reading and research into them, and then a pattern might reveal itself. With this spread, there's no missing this pattern. It is in your face. It is very clear what these cards are saying. So this is an alignment mirror spread. Being in alignment means that we are in direct connection with our soul's purpose and mission. We want to be intentional with our actions and consciously listening to our bodies in order to be fully on the right path that we are meant to be on. In examining if we are in alignment, we can ask ourselves, what things bring us joy and nurture us? And sometimes the universe asks us if we really want to continue with the path that we are on. So this spread is encouraging us to take that moment of pause and look, where am I heading? What direction am I going? And how does that direction fit with who I am? Connecting with your highest purpose can give you that direction. And examining, what am I here to learn, and what am I here to teach? who do I want to be and who do I want to impact? And how am I nurturing and honoring myself? So these are all questions to keep in mind as we are looking at these cards that will help us see how we can better make that connection to being fully aligned. The first card is the inner life card. So for the alignment map, we have the inner life and the outer life, our internal thoughts and emotions and external. Starting off with the inner life card, about what's going on internally right now. We have destruction. So, like I said at the beginning, this is a heavy spread. But one thing to keep in mind also is that my relationship with these cards is not that of a fortune teller or a future teller. These cards are designed to help you focus your gaze inward and examine things about yourself and about your life that can impact your future. But just because we've drawn that destruction card doesn't necessarily mean that literal destruction is in your future. What this card is meaning, first of all, this is a fire card. In this deck, we have cards that are each of the 4 suits for the elements. This one is fire. And this card is telling us that a choice must be made. What needs to die today? And instead of thinking it of as what needs to die in a literal sense of a person dying, we can think of it as what do we need to release? This could be a limiting belief, an old pattern, a toxic relationship, a harmful mindset. But because this card is in the inner life position, I'm thinking that this card is asking us to look within ourselves at our mentalities, our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about our worth, our value, our skills, what we have to offer. The card in this position is asking us about our relationship with what's going on inside. And in thinking about those things, how can we let it go if it's no longer serving us? The destruction card is also asking us, how can we find our truth? The first step is recognizing what we want to let go. And the second step is losing that grip of our attachment to these things. And it can be difficult to take that second step. Acknowledging is easy, and then doing the work and taking the action and putting in the time to be with ourselves and our thoughts and to break a piece of yourself, especially if it's something that we have formed our identity around, that can be difficult. The destruction card does call to mind the Tower card in a traditional tarot deck. So this is a oracle deck from the Threads of Fate, and it definitely reminds me a lot of the Tower card. The Tower's symbolism is that of sudden change, of a massive upheaval, a shakeup of whatever has led you to be comfortable and complacent. What illusions have you been telling yourself? Building a foundation on unstable truths. And this doesn't necessarily mean examining that you are living a lie. It can also mean, what things are you telling yourself that are not rooted in truth? What are you telling yourself? And building a foundation with that are rooted in self-doubt, that are rooted in negativity, that are rooted in anxiety. So the Tower and the destruction cards are putting you in a position where everything you thought to be true is now getting turned on its head. And to move forward, you must self-destruct so that you can rebuild and refocus. And this is hard. This can be painful. This card ultimately is about growth, though. If we look at some of the symbolism on the card, we have the owl eyes in the center. And the owl signifies visibility in the darkness. It's encouraging us to trust our instincts to look and pinpoint what supports us and what doesn't, what in our life nurtures us and what doesn't. But the owl is not afraid of the dark. The owl draws its strength and its power from the dark. The other imagery on the card is the elder leaf. The elder plant is associated with darkness and mystery, and I think that we are most familiar with the elder wood in Harry Potter as the component of the powerful elder wand. The elder wood reminds us also of the power of fire. Remember that this is a fire card. And while fire can be a massively destructive force, it also brings life and renewal and regeneration. This card is leading you towards your time to break free from all of the old ways of thinking that have been holding you back. But be kind to yourself, because this process requires patience, practice, and self-compassion. On the opposite side of the spread, we have the outer life card. So we have the inner life and the outer life. And this card is paradox. This is a card in the fifth suit, which is ether. Paradox is confusing. A paradox is two seemingly conflicting things existing at the same time. And this card wants us to acknowledge that we hold two extremes inside us at the same time. And this is the gateway to growth. And this card tells us to embrace that confusion. By two extremes, this can be fear and hope, dark and light, anxiety and confidence, death and life. This card is in the external life position. And it is encouraging us to step away from that black and white mentality and acknowledge that gray area in between. On one end we have death, on one end we have life, and that area in between is change and that catalyst for growth. When we're examining a factor in our external life, we have bad on one end and good on the other end. What can we learn in the middle? An exercise that the guidebook encourages us to do is to take witness to your thoughts throughout the day. If they are leaning towards the negative, try to push them to the extreme. We've got one end of fully negative and one end of fully unrealistically, ridiculously positive and ridiculously negative. As crazy as those thoughts we can make them, and then pull it back into the middle. The symbolism on the paradox card is that compass. We have the directions north and south, east and west. But if you start walking and go all the way north as far as you can possibly go, and then around the world, you will eventually come around and be at the South Pole. Everything is connected to that polar opposite. We have that positive and that negative, that light and that dark in our life, and the paradox card is asking us to not fully resign ourselves to one or the other. To not fully embrace that anxiety 100% or that confidence 100%, because we can still learn things from both sides. So Jasper is sitting on the chair next to me, and he's sleeping, and I can hear him snoring, and he's making these little cat noises while he's asleep, and it's pretty funny. So moving on, we have the inner life card, the outer life card, and then we have the card that represents what our life internally fully aligned will look like, and what our life externally fully aligned will look like. And so for that internal in alignment card, we have the void. What's particularly interesting about this card is while I was looking through the guidebook about these cards and writing down my notes, I was doing a little bit of research online, and I went on a site to get a little bit of supplementary information about these cards. And when you visit this site, I'll have it linked in the description as well. You click on a button and it will randomly generate your daily tarot card. And so I decided to try it out and see. And I click on the button. Oh, did you wake up? Click on the button to get my random card of the day, and the card was a blank card. And at first I thought it was a glitch. Then I scrolled down and saw that the card was called Nothingness. A duplicate of the void. And so the void literally means that no thing, nothingness. It is a emptiness that envelops all aspects of self. We may find ourselves entering a void after all that we have known is not what we thought it was. We may feel disbelief, a loss of faith, feeling blank, empty. Things that we were once passionate about no longer give us that direction. And we may be questioning your significance and role in the world. What does that sound like? That sounds like we are traveling on that path towards alignment. We are in this place and we have a completely blank canvas in front of us. Who do you want to be? What do you want to learn? Who do you want to impact? Who and what do you want to teach? All of those things that we were talking about, to be fully aligned, the void is telling us that emptiness is that step to move towards being in alignment. And being in that void can be scary. Being alone with your thoughts, it can be hard. There's nothing to grasp hold of. There's no direction. There's no hint of what possibilities lie ahead. But remember this card, we have the paradox. We hold multitudes of the spectrum inside us. So in that nothingness, there is everything. In that void and that emptiness of no thing lies the potential for everything. This card is also encouraging us to make that surrender. We are taught to be constantly moving forward, to be constantly doing something and moving towards a goal and keeping ourselves busy. And we don't allow ourselves that space to embrace the lesson of stillness, to quiet our minds. And the void is teaching us to be still and to be okay with uncertainty, to be okay with not knowing. This card is asking us to treasure the moment of being in the in-between. Don't try to fill that nothingness with something just because you are feeling uncomfortable in this space. We can think of the void as a glass cup of nothing. It's empty. And we can fill this cup with something liquid. We can have some mud and pour this in this cup, and then we say, oh, hi. We say, okay, this cup is full, here, have a drink. We have eliminated that feeling of uncomfortableness with that empty cup. The cup is no longer empty, it's full, here you go, I've put something in it. But having a cup full of mud is not going to solve the problem of us being thirsty. It's eliminated that anxiety of having an empty cup, but it's not doing anything to remedy that root problem. So instead of trying to fill that void, trying to fill that cup with something that we don't need, something that doesn't service us, we need to be patient with ourselves and patient with the universe, and know that if we wait and do the work and examine ourselves, we can turn on that faucet and get that stream of cool water into our cup. We can emerge from the void stronger and more empowered and more in tune with ourselves and more in tune with who we are meant to be. But we need to spend the time in that space that we need to spend there. The next card is the external life in alignment. And once I show you this, I think you will understand how at the beginning I said there was a theme with all of these cards. For the external life in alignment, we are seeing shadow. Our shadow self is our unconscious, our innermost emotions, our innermost anxieties, and we cannot reach our full potential without knowing ourselves in totality. Your innermost emotions and fears must be faced. Sometimes we have to examine and accept and release things about ourselves that we've been told to bury deep inside. And this is where shadow work can be difficult, because it is telling us to examine those things that we believe are the worst parts about ourselves. But destruction of our darkest part lets in the light. How do you make a shadow disappear? I've got my shadow over my mat here. How do we make the shadow disappear? By letting in that light. The shadow card is an air card, and it is an invitation to go to that underworld, to go to that in-between space. What does that sound like? To step into that void and to go within ourselves and to allow the things that need to fall away, time to fall away. What no longer serves us? What can we release? How can we acknowledge that there are both the parts in our life, and what can we learn from that, and how can we grow? The shadow card tells us not to rush that process. This takes work. It is uncomfortable. Being in that underworld space, being in that shadow space, in that void, in that transition, it can be scary. But again, with that paradox, for all of that fear, we can also look at that as hope. Being in that in-between space can be exciting and empowering because it allows us to be reborn. We need to give ourselves the permission to be in this mind space because these cards are telling us that change is coming. And this card is the how to align card. And this is the card that showed up twice in this position. This card is meant to be in this place of how you can become aligned with your highest self. Release. We have all of these 4 heavy and confusing cards that are telling us that we have a lot of internal work to do. And the outcome is this really light and freeing card. It asks us, how can we break free from limiting beliefs or painful experiences? Sometimes we have an idea of where we want to go. So we compartmentalize and internalize and repress all of the things that we believe are holding us back. We must allow ourselves the space to process our feelings and show up for the confusion and the rage and the grief as we work through our feelings so that we can let them go. Again, this card is asking us, what is no longer serving you? What is old and stale and taking up space in your mind? What is taking up real estate in your heart and in your body and in your thoughts? What would you do if these things didn't take up your energy? How would you feel if you didn't have to spend your energy focusing on these things? What behaviors and beliefs do you wish you possessed? Can you envision yourself and your life fully embodying these behaviors, fully embodying these traits, these beliefs, these mindsets? What does your life look like? And what is the core issue? What is the root of what is holding us back? The imagery on the release card we have a frog. And the frog as an amphibian, I think, is a good embodiment of that paradox of being both in the water and on the land. And we all know the life cycle of the growth of the frog. Starts off as an egg in the water, and then it hatches into a tadpole with a little tail, and then it grows arms and legs, and then loses that tail and becomes a fully formed adult frog. How can we look at that growth cycle and approach our perceived flaws not as things to eliminate, but as things that we can use as fuel for that transformation? The frog in that in-between stage doesn't think to itself, oh, I hate this tail. My tail is no longer serving me. It's holding me back. The frog doesn't have these thoughts about itself. It just knows that this tail is going to be the catalyst for that metamorphosis. How can we use that which no longer serves us as fuel for that change? All things have a purpose. How can we transmute that which no longer serves us and do so in a way that honors our growth? Again, how can we be kind to ourselves and approach this with self-compassion? As we learn about ourselves and as we grow and as we change, it can be scary to want to let go. But the frog doesn't have fear of that release. The frog doesn't have fear over the moment when it's going to lose its tail and emerge from the water and go onto the land. And so we don't need to be afraid of making that transition, because that transition is going to be a transition to alignment, of being fully in tune with the life that we are meant to be living. we can take that fear and that uncertainty and turn it into that hope and that excitement in looking towards the future. So this has been definitely a little bit of a longer reading than some of my other oracle spreads. And I think that the main theme has been pretty clear with these cards, with destruction, paradox, the void, and shadow. This is a theme of shadow work and a theme of release. I hope that this reading has been helpful. And as always, I like to end my readings with a reminder that my relationship with these cards is that of a mirror. They are encouraging us to look inward, and they can reveal only that which already exists within us.